if we go back, people have like maybe this concept is just entirely wrong from the outset, but people have an idea that there was sort of an idealized American past that maybe things weren't great for different reasons, but that corporations and like the billionaire class didn't always have such a stranglehold on our system of governance. I mean, from the outset, it was basically white guys that own property that could vote and get into office. So I would say that we were never true democracy in that sense, and that's what you already said. But like, is there something novel about where we're at now versus times past, and what kind of got us to this place where we're at
Yeah.
right
Well, it depends on how far back you go. Throughout American history, there's always been more democratic efforts to expand the vote and to make it easier for people to vote and to use the power of the government to benefit people more economically. And on the other side, there's been resistance to that, right? So this has always been a back and forth where one side will kind of push things in their direction and then the other side pushes back.
now?
But if you look at it today, what people are usually looking back at is something that's more recent in history, the late 1950s, early 1960s. This is because of the New Deal of Franklin Roosevelt in the 30s. With the Great Depression, which was such an economic disaster, there was a need for a change in the political system. And
Mhm.
even though Franklin Roosevelt was a rich person, he saw the need for change and he accepted a lot of changes that gave us a somewhat more equal society. And there was pushback from rich people, but it became accepted and they saw that they were continuing to make money and make profits up until about the 1970s. And when that happened, the forces of wealth started to push back against all of the New Deal programs. They
Mhm.
started to make it harder to unionize. They kept trying to restrict like welfare benefits and unemployment benefits and give more power to corporations and wealth. So we've seen the eroding of all these types of things that supposedly give us the relatively equal kind of economic situation we had. I say relative because it's relative to, say, the 1920s before the big crash and today after these several decades of growing inequality.
Sure. So yeah, I mean, I always kind of, and I speak as a layperson. I don't have the training you do in political science or anything like that. But I've kind of in my own private study and just kind of researching what I have, it seems like the 1940s and 50s with the New Deal era, that kind of birthed what people kind of view as sort of the American dream era where it became possible to, own the house off of a single income and, be able to go on vacations and do all just the normal or things we think of normal now.
Mhm.
And then it was during the 1970s and then especially 1980s with the Reaganomics, era sort of that things really started changing. Is that a pretty accurate timeline?
I would say so. And the difference between the right and left today is really in their story of why it changed.
Okay. Could you tease that out a bit more? What do you
Yeah.
mean?
On the left, they're saying the corporations pushed back and started unraveling what we had built. And on the right, they said those kind of programs led to the economic problems of the 1970s, especially high inflation and unemployment. We had a period of economic turbulence in the 70s, and each side was claiming that the other side really had caused it. So the right
Okay.
was saying all these reforms just made things not work anymore. And we needed to start to unravel some of them. We went too far, in other words, went too far with labor rights, went too far with welfare benefits, we went too far with environmental regulations and other regulations. And so we needed to open things up to more competition. Then the economy could grow. Whereas on the left, they're saying, no, things were working well for ordinary people. And it's only when you guys started to unravel everything that things went wrong. So it depends on what you focus on and the kind of story you tell about it, where you're
Mhm.
going to land on the political map or who you believe. And what I see is that capitalism is the driving force in inequality.
Mhm.
It's when you have government that pushes back against the effects of capitalism that things can become a little more equal. But then capitalism, just as a system, not necessarily because there's villains, but just as a system, it's going to put pressure against those constraints.
Hmm.
And eventually, either you're going to have to do something to change capitalism at the roots of it, or you're going to have to allow it to just burst every restraint and become a who knows what.
But I know that no matter what, I have a framework and I have priorities, and it's like human flourishing and dignity, and not corporations making
I
us.
find it better just to put it out there instead of,
Yeah, no, no, it's fair
because
enough.
then people are going to accuse you, that's not neutral. That's all biased.
And that's a point I've made in videos I've done before. And the more I research, the more it seems is like you can have like maybe individual billionaires or individual very, very wealthy people, or I don't know about corporations, but individuals that might be decent human beings and be philanthropists and all those things. But those people still benefit from a system designed to uphold and propagate people like them. And so we're not trying to like demonize every single individual. This is more of a systemic critique of capitalism as a whole
Yeah.
and from the type of situations we're facing now. And that's what like the system actually produces.
That's where I disagree with the rhetoric of somebody like Bernie Sanders, who, in a lot of ways, I would support some of his ideas. But whenever he talks about the greed of billionaires, I think he's missing the point. He's making it into a question of virtue and vice rather than the whole system pushes people into you have to seek a profit or your business goes by the wayside. And the ways to seek a profit are sometimes by finding a good market and producing a better product, but maybe even more often, it's by putting the costs on somebody else, reducing the labor's benefits and salary, and degrading the environment, removing jobs from thriving communities and just leaving them desolate, cheating people, making people dependent upon you're giving them false promises, or like the insurance market, you find you can't escape from it anymore, and
Mm.
they're all jacking up their prices. So I think the whole system, because it's premised on trying to make money for people who have invested, everybody's caught up in it. If
Yeah.
you have any money, it's hard to find a place to invest it that's not going to be seeking profits at any cost. If you're a worker, you're going to find yourself caught up in a system in which you have to work for somebody who's not interested in your welfare. They're interested in how you can help make a profit. And so that drive to make profits is what keeps the whole system running.